Life's most urgent and persistent question is, what are you doing for others?
And you're listening to Juno Afternoon. In the studio with me, I'm very lucky to have Daniel Beckton.
Daniel is an activist with Project Ubuntu, and he's traveled the country inspiring and challenging others to engage in public service.
My name is Daniel Beckton, and I created something called Project Ubuntu, where I'm spending 1 week with one organization in every state that embodies Ubuntu, that gets people to help others. Because I believe in every community, there are people helping other people. And it's not about arguing about money and votes, but the human relationships, the connections that are what we need. I'm looking at these questions of community, of access to physical space, access to information, access to ideas, and opportunities, and mobilization. How do we leverage goodwill as a resource? How do we harness? How do we harness? How do we mobilize love? How do we mobilize love? I could say things that I have to say.
Going to one community in every state and experiencing that kindness and trying to mobilize it through learning about people who are helping other people who are using that human connection relationship to improve the lives of others, to increase the amount of love in their community. Every community has people helping other people. Every community has people who recognize that you can argue all day long about votes, about money, about other limited commodities of power. But what's actually helping people is always relationships, connection, human effort, human presence.
Our great charge is to map the lessons of filial love, of unconditional love, onto everybody, agape love. Because Dr. King said an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Well, Dr. King says you need both, love and power. He says power without love is reckless and abusive. Love without power is sentimental and anemic. The most beautiful kind of power actually comes through love. And that's something that I've experienced on this trip. When you owe somebody a debt, you have a power gap. When you're repaying debt, you are diminishing power. When you're repaying kindness, you're expanding love. You are increasing love. And what I've seen on this trip is that love works and love multiplies. Love keeps growing. And the very next thing that Dr. King says is power at its best is love, implementing the demands of justice.
You always have the opportunity to choose humble curiosity or putting up the walls. And the story that we've been told throughout our lives is that there's them, and they are on the other side of the walls. And we build the walls around us in order to keep them out. But when you let the walls down with a humble curiosity, you are able to transform and at once abandon the ego and rebuild the ego or the self with this new identity that is defined through love of service to others. And when you have this moment where you want to help someone else, they come to you for directions on the street and you know the answer, you know the directions. You're filled with a sense of purpose because their happiness is your purpose.
And this is the only way we can be great as a nation. We're hardworking. We're motivated, we're entrepreneurial, we are proud of our Americanness, but that's all for me, my family. The only way to be great is to see your gifts as instruments of service. And when our country is able to become a nation where all our gifts and resources are held not for ourselves alone, but as instruments of service for the rest of humanity, we begin to implement the demands of justice with a foundation of love.
But as critical as we ought to be of all structures and systems that we have, it's still pretty incredible and pretty energizing that you might have a family that just moved here and they might not speak the language very well, and they're just getting their feet on the ground, and then you have a group of people that just builds a home with them. I mean, that's amazing. So that's happening in every community. That metaphorically is happening. And it's so wonderful to be around the kind of people who are always serving others.
So really my goal is to be helpful, to celebrate and support, and to love everybody has really been my goal. When I show up the first thing I think it means is this Indian concept of ahimsa, to not harm. My first priority when I go anywhere is to not get in the way, to not try to impose my will. And the second priority is to be quick to help and slow to judge. And I think when you combine those two things, you see that love works, that love gives you a tremendous sense of power and opportunity. And you know what it said this morning? It said, they are changing the way people talk about young people. You are literally changing the reality of how much power young people have, of how much hope young people have, by not worrying about limited commodities that create a scarcity mentality, but by accessing the infinite return on investment that love offers.
Very quickly, it became clear that resources were coming my way almost magically. That continued to be the case throughout my trip. You know, I planned it for 2 years. $20,000 came to me to be able to make this trip happen, all through individuals. No one gave more than $500. And then the really magical thing was I never paid to stay anywhere. 71 homes were provided.
You know, I've been working a lot in farms and fields and literally thinking about how I'm planting seeds and harvesting the work of others. This is what I do in city or schools. When I walk in with a red jacket and everybody there trusts me, I'm harvesting the work that y'all have been doing. This moment was prepared for us by everything that happened before it. You are because of everything. And everything is because of you. You have a brilliance that will shake the nation and indeed the world. And if anyone should ask, how many did you help? They ask a question that cannot be answered. But the question they ask is, how much have you loved? I know it's been said, but it's always been true. You can't stop a war when the war's within you. The only time is now, and now's the right time to tear down your walls and let your light shine. Not because you should, because you could for goodwill. Mobilize your skills to lead a life fulfilled. I've been, he's been, we've been saved, but everyone's a slave. Turn the page and come out of the cave. Your whole mind missed a picture that's always been and stays. Gaze up at time like divine eyes can. Try to understand I am that I am. The only thing about all the truth above that's reflected in the wisdom is the truth is love. Burn all the fires and the earth will grow. Turn all the liars in for what they owe. What will show is only mercy upon us. The love of the universe lives on longest. The song is the victory. Quiet when the wind blows and sin goes. The battle of our skin grows. Under them clothes we're kinfolk who's been broke, been blind, till we woke to find that we spoke to rhyme and we walked to dance when we taught the stance. That the thing to learn about all the truth above is you love to live when you live to love. Thank you. Namaste.